Hello, we are David and Alejandra Miller. We are the leaders of the Emmanuel community here in the United States, and we're here to talk to you about the I Am Emmanuel campaign, to talk about upcoming events, as well as news within the community.
The I Am Emmanuel campaign is an initiative that we just started to help all of us, all the brothers and sisters, to go deeper into our call and to understand what exactly that means to really be Emmanuel, and how that looks in my day-to-day life and in my life in general.
So, who are we? We've been.
We'd like to say a prayer first.
Sorry. So, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Pierre Gossard,
Pray for us.
Cyprian and Davros.
Pray for us.
Amen.
And for your entertainment, we're not editing this, so
We'll make the best out of it.
yes, we'll make the best out of it.
So, who are we? I, myself, am from Detroit, from Michigan. Alejandra is from Florida, from Miami. And we've been leaders of the United States since 2015, approximately fall 2015. I've been in the community myself since 2011, where I met the community in Italy after meeting Alejandra.
I met the community for the first time in 2002 in Royal Mute in Toronto, and then as things progressed, I moved to Rome, studied a master's there with the community, and then worked for the Emmanuel School of Mission in Rome, and have been in the community since 2005. And we are also part of the Fraternity of Jesus.
So this past national weekend at Hidden Lake, north of Atlanta, we all gathered together. It was the first national weekend after a few years, and we discussed this campaign that we wanted to start running in 2019. The campaign, as we said, is called I Am Emmanuel, and it's just a year to reflect on what is it to be Emmanuel. There's maybe a lot of new people in the community that don't know, and it's a good refresher even for those of us who've been in the community. We've joined forces with the Canes in Minneapolis, and we put together a series of teachings that we had hoped you'd be able to watch at your community days each weekend, which would help to bring us all together.
And so with the Canes, we looked at, the Canes gave the first two teachings in September, October, and they talked about why the community exists and what the purpose of the community is. And basically, it is to fulfill our call to holiness and service. And of course, this is firstly lived through our personal prayer life, and that in turn flows into our charity and service to our brothers and sisters in the community as well outside of the community, and to go on mission. But Heather in December took that a little bit further, Heather Triplett, and she talked about the day-to-day rhythm of life for a community member, and she talked about what we do to commit in our day-to-day lives: daily mass, adoration, praise, of course our weekly maisonnées or households, our monthly meetings, etc., etc. And really how that all plays out in giving us the graces and giving us a place that we can really strive for holiness so that we can go out and evangelize.
And so Father Andrew also gave a teaching, and he talked about the heart of Emmanuel through the teaching of adoration, and talked about how little we expect from our prayer life and from our time in prayer, and how we can change that. St. Paul says that we have the form of religion, but we are denying its power to do what it claims to do. And we must make an act of faith and recognize God's true presence in our time of prayer and acknowledge His love for us so that we may truly be open to the graces that God wants to give us.
And really, as Pierre Gossard was an adorer of Christ in the Blessed Sacrament, we too are called to be adorers. And so that's a kind of a resume, or a summary, I'm sorry, of all the teachings that we have been giving so far. And this is a great part of the initiative of the campaign, which is to have national teaching so that everybody is receiving the same teaching around the country. But what is this campaign? What is the purpose? And really it's to stir the hearts of all community members so that we can burn for the love of Jesus and our neighbor. And we want to ask ourselves, what can I do to make the community richer, fuller, and more alive with joy and faith, so that those who see us, those who experience the community for the first time, or those who come in contact with the community for even one time, one instance, they witness this unity of one heart and one mind. But before we get into this, we want to share with you a few observations of obstacles that we've noticed that are particular to us here in the U.S. And we say that they're obstacles because we feel that it keeps us from being able to flourish to our greatest potential as a community.
So our vastness as a country would be a first example, that the size of the U.S. It's so large. We're so spread out. It just, it seems like we have these small communities all over, and it's hard. It's you don't see the larger communities that you might see in France. Our busyness, so Americans in particular, it seems like we are so busy, including ourselves. Why are we so busy? But this busyness in our daily life can be a detriment to living out charity with all of our brothers and sisters, making time for them, spending time with them, even outside of Maisonnette. And then our lack of confidence in what the Lord has given each of us can be a stumbling block about not sharing our gifts with one another.
So these are things that we've observed in the past 4 years as being leaders, and what we experience ourselves as community members. But we don't want to stop there. We don't want to just focus on the negative. We want to focus on the graces that the community indeed gives us, and the church at large, what the church gives us through her sacraments and through the presence of Jesus Christ, so that we can take these graces and really allow not only ourselves to flourish, but the communities to flourish in the U.S. So we want to look at 4 basic goals of this campaign, this I Am Emmanuel campaign. The first one is to be able to experience the closeness of community life despite our separation and physical distance. The second one is to really look at what it means to be committed in the community and how the Lord provides the graces to live out these commitments. He's never going to ask us to do something that He doesn't give us the grace to do. Third, to reflect on the fact that God calls us where we are, and He equips us for the mission to serve our brothers and sisters near and far. And finally, to live the mission. So those are our 4 points. 1, closeness or unity. 2, what the commitment entails. 3, how we can best serve. And 4, how to live the mission. So let's look at the first point, living closeness when we're so far apart.
So how can we live a closeness of community life when we are so far from one another? The community and technology provide the means for all of this, and we just have to make an effort to use those. So first of all, we've got the national teachings. So if we're all viewing the same teaching on the same national weekends, then this is one way to stay unified.
And we've encouraged, we've sent out emails to all the regional leaders, and we encourage you that we all have the same community day, which would be the second Saturday of every month. And we realize that not all regions can do this, but when we can, we'd like to all have the same day of community gatherings.
Second of all, we've got the website. Sign up for it. You can get news. You can contribute news of your own from your area, and it helps to keep us all connected. And we can share ideas this way as well. It's an easy way to share ideas.
One example is when New Jersey has been putting on these Mercy Nights. They have been so successful, and Lynx, a seminarian of the community, had written a couple of blog posts about this, and this really inspired some other members, and now we have another initiative up in Boston for the same thing, some Mercy Nights that they're putting together. So this news is there not only because we want to know what's going on, but it's there to also inspire and help each other to be on mission.
So be proactive in communicating with those around you. So if we're not friends with each other, then there's no real community. Contact those who are alone and isolated. It should not be the duty of only those who lead. So we can all reach out to our brothers and sisters who may be alone. And it seems like, especially with our country, we've got people who, so many who are alone or isolated by themselves. So we've been able to have Skype Maisonnées, which helps, but we really should reach out to them. And
helping brother priests or those consecrated or those on their way to consecration. Many times our brother priests might be alone, or they may need help, or they just need the company of brothers and sisters. Same thing for lay consecrated, or again, as David had said, those who are alone. But reaching out and just randomly picking up the phone, or shooting an email or FaceTime and calling those. And we gave out a list, a database of everybody's contact information that was sent to your leaders that should have been given to all the households. So we'll send that out again if necessary.
And then answering emails when sent. Charity spurs us to be responsible and prompt with requests from our leaders and from our brothers and sisters. So we really want to respond when somebody sends out a request.
Yeah, this is a bit of a sticky situation, just because many times we send out emails, or other people in the community send out emails, and we're all busy, but a lot of times there's a lot of lag time where people aren't answering immediately, or taking many days or even weeks to respond. And we just ask, as part of this, call to unity, that we just try to keep the communication lines going smoothly. Next thing, when Heather gave her teaching in December, it was talking about the practical day-to-day life of community members and what it meant to be committed. And so we want to just go over that briefly. Many of us know what that entails. In a nutshell, it's about the daily praise, adoration, mass, of course according to your vocation. Someone who is on their way to lay consecration life in the kingdom, giving their celibacy to the kingdom, has maybe more time than a mother of 5 children. To your weekly or bi-weekly households, please, keep faithful to that. That's not only for your grace to grow in holiness, but also for our brothers and sisters. They need you there. Thirdly, the monthly community days, hopefully that you're having right now. The national retreats. Keep in mind that in the fall, so every October, around October, November, we have our national retreats, and we help those who perhaps don't have the means financially to go there, but we encourage everybody to attend. It's kind of like a booster shot for our community life. And finally, the fraternity retreat, or the Parélemonial summer sessions. Of course, fraternity retreat is by invitation, but if it's something that you would like to discern, please do not hesitate to tell us or your leaders. And then the summer sessions, we recently had a French family from Boston, offer to accompany anyone who is interested in going to the summer sessions in Paris, because the majority of them are in French, and they'd be willing to accompany any English speakers who would like to go and just discover Paris, which is a wonderful, wonderful place to discover the graces of the community. Then there's service. All community members are asked to serve either locally or nationally, and this is something that perhaps is not very familiar to most U.S. community members, because we are so spread apart and because we are pretty small. But in all the other countries where the community is present, every single brother and sister has a service assigned to them. In communities such as Minneapolis, this is more obvious because they are bigger and they need more people to participate. But when we're smaller communities, such as here in Detroit or perhaps in Texas, it might not be so easy. But we do have services that need to be filled, and like I said, at the local or national level, we that's part of the commitment. And you know, Pierre Gossal once said, we do not enter the community, we create it. And I think this is a great example of what it means to serve, because it's not that we're just entering this place where we receive and we're fed spiritually. It's also a place where we create the community, and we create that by serving our brothers and sisters and being attentive to their needs. And it kind of brings to mind when you're sitting at a dinner table, kind of like this one. This is our dinner table, and to just be aware, you know, what does my neighbor need? Perhaps they need more water, or maybe their napkin fell, or maybe they'd like seconds. And to be constantly aware and just realizing, what is it that my local community needs? Is there someone that's probably going through a hard time? Is there someone that needs help moving, or someone who's sick and I can cook a meal for? It's thinking ahead and being, you know, 2 steps ahead of the game. That's really what it means to create community, is that charity, that one heart and one mind. It's not waiting to be called to fulfill a service, but really looking for that service to serve others. And it's also looking beyond our talents and our comfort zones, and perhaps realizing that maybe the community doesn't need a particular talent that I have, but maybe they need me to learn to do something else. Again, just going out of our comfort zone. I think we can share that when we were asked to become leaders of the United States, we were a bit surprised. I definitely wasn't expecting it, and it was overwhelming at first, and I thought, well, okay, this is something we definitely have to discern. But as always, I feel that in the community, we're always given the freedom, of course, to say yes or no to something, but many times, and I can tell you this from the inside, that when the community discerns to ask a brother or sister for a service, a particular service, it's usually also they're keeping in mind the good of that brother or sister. Perhaps this will help them to grow. Perhaps this will help them to learn something new. Perhaps this will help them to live more charity with the brothers and sisters around that they're having difficulty with, etc. So when we call and ask you for a particular service, just keep that in mind, that it's not just random, but it's also
an opportunity for growth.
An opportunity for growth, exactly.
Which brings us to tithing. We shouldn't look at tithing as an option, as just, you know, we've got the community, we've got our parish, we've got maybe our favorite charity, and maybe I already give to my parish. But we shouldn't look at tithing to the community as an option. It's part of our commitment. Right now, only 14 families tithe monthly to the community, which is less than 1/3 of the families here in the U.S. currently committed. And a majority of the money is coming from foreign families that are only temporarily here in the U.S. It's not our culture right now in the community, but it really should be, and it must be, because it's part of being a family. Tithing, it's normally 10% of what you discern as a family, or what you discern as a family. Whatever you can give as a family, but it's something that you can distribute among your parish, among your favorite charities, and the community. So really, you could decide how much of it you want to give the community, how much you want to give to the charities, what do you need to give to your local parish. So why do we need the money? What do we put the money towards? Tithing goes towards administrative costs, costs for the website or the various other things we have going on, paying for retreats for those who can't afford it, paying for our leaders to be with us, missions now, and the ones we'll be adding later. And then we'll also be adding marketing tools for those missions and for open community days.
We have decided to start making brochures and prayer cards that we can distribute nationally, so that you can have these on hand to give out during missions or community days that are open, just to give something to people. And it's really powerful, because I remember when I went to World Youth Day in Toronto in 2002, I remember taking a little tiny brochure about the School of Mission. Some of you remember, it was this yellow little fold-up brochure, and I kept it in my desk for about a year or two. And that little brochure is what I picked up one day and said, this is what I want. And it was so powerful, because it reminded me of what I had lived in World Youth Day. So we want to start doing that, and this can only be done through money that's being given through the tithe of community members.
And I would also just add that even small amounts can make such a difference. So small amounts on a monthly basis.
$5, $10. For us, it was really a decision when we started tithing. For many years, we didn't. We just didn't even. It wasn't even on our radar. But when we realized, wait a minute, if we want our community to help us in times of need, or if we want our community to grow and flourish, this is a part of that commitment. And we started off with a small amount, and we've added every year according to our ability. And we also have to remember that the community is a public, lay, faithful community that's recognized by the Holy See, by the Vatican, which means what it equals out to is that wherever the community functions or is present, it represents the Catholic Church at large. So when we're giving, when we're tithing to the community, we are essentially tithing to the church as well.
And also we're supporting, some of this money will support the School of Mission. So
we do help every year to support this new School of Mission, if you haven't heard, in New York City.
Although they basically fund themselves, we indirectly will give them support, and especially when they're coming to our parishes, our local parishes, for various missions.
Yeah. The next thing is what it means to be fully committed, and to discern that commitment, to discern our place in the Emmanuel community. So the community really flourishes and is fully alive when we truly discern our calling in the community, and this discernment of knowing, is this a place for me to grow in holiness, or for me and my husband or wife, vice versa. So the community has kind of drawn up a plan of how this can work out. Obviously, it's not so black and white, where it has to be a certain amount of years, etc. It is also discerned with your local leader and the national leader, etc. But we do ask that people really take the discernment seriously. And how do we properly discern this? Well, this is from the Guide to Community Life. At first, there's an informal contact with the community. Sometimes we even experience the outpouring of the Holy Spirit at this moment. And this kind of draws us into the desire to get to know the community better. This can go on for a few months or even a year, after which the local leaders or the household leader will ask those people if they would like to make a step of welcome and discernment. And the step of welcome and discernment within the community is approximately 2 to 4 years. This means full participation in the community, all the activities we had mentioned prior, as well as service and tithing, and companionship. Each person is assigned a companion, or each couple is assigned a couple as for companionship. In this way, they have 2 to 4 years to discern with and through the community, because it's a double discernment. So the community is also discerning, is this person really called here? And we're really essentially looking for three things in together. One, a personal attachment to Christ. Two, life and fraternal charity, which means faithfulness to the commitments, service, and a spirit of benevolence, so this towards others, particularly in the one rule that Pierre Gossat gave to the community, which was no criticizing. Three, I'm sorry, that was it. Then there is, if this person discerns to continue, then there is the step of commitment. The step of commitment is basically saying, yes, this is where I find my place or call to holiness, and this is where I want to live that out. And Pierre Gossat, in his wisdom, said that each year we will renew this commitment. And this is obviously for two reasons. One, because life changes. And sometimes, you know, maybe you get married and your spouse is not interested, or you just discern out. But also, for those of us who continue to renew year after year after year, it's a reminder of what that commitment is. And finally, there is the fraternity of Jesus. And this is for those who feel a more radical call to mission, a more radical call to live out the graces in a way that perhaps you're not finding in just the community. And that is something that you can discern with the local leaders. And all of this is also obviously done with your companions. So serving. We cannot strive for holiness if we do not serve, and we cannot serve if we do not, sorry, there's like a typo, come out of our comfort zone. Serving should go hand in hand with sacrifice. So we talked about serving both our local community and our national community. And in next month during your community gathering, you'll receive either a worksheet that we'll ask you to fill out, or perhaps we'll do it electronically, which will probably be easier, asking you what are the services that you can commit to, and what are the things that you're thinking. And we'll also have a list of services that we need to be filled. Some of you might actually get a phone call asking you to discern a specific service. Secondly is companionship, right. The service of companionship. And this is a big one because we're in great need of companions.
And it's probably the most misunderstood of the services. So all members should have a companion at the first step, at the welcome and discernment step. And then it's basically journeying with others in their faith walk, and you don't require any special talent, and basically all you need is ears and a heart. So
that's it.
We need more companions, and it's really the biggest need in all of our services. When we do have new people come in, we've got Rosemary looking basically all over the world for companions.
Yeah, we try to keep companions to North America, so we share with Canadians, but we see time and time and again that we have very, very few Americans here in the U.S. who are willing to companion. And me personally, I can share with you just a little testimony. For years, I actually did not have a companion. When I moved out to the U.S., there was just no one available, or maybe I didn't tell somebody I needed a companion. I can't remember the reason why, but I would say for a span of about 2 years, I did not have a companion. And I was companioning. I was companioning about 2 or 3 young women. And I received so many graces through the companionship that I was giving. It was amazing. It's like evangelization. You know, we go out to evangelize, but in actuality, we are evangelized. And it's the same thing really with companionship. We receive this person, and in a phone call or a Skype call, and basically we listen. We listen to where they're at. We listen to what is going on in their community life and even in their personal life. And we just share. We share what our own experiences are. We pray to the Holy Spirit, and we help them to really see God's will. And really, it's amazing what a gift it is to be a companion. So we strongly encourage that you discern this, and to not relegate it to only, well, I don't know if I can, and my prayer life is not that great, or I'm not holy enough, or anything like that, but really just say, do I have ears to listen? Yes. Do I have a heart to care for this brother or sister? Yes. Then you can be a companion. Yeah.
So what else do we need? We need those who can help with the website. So we've got basically a new website that was formed, and
thanks to Michal and Patricia Figursky, which I have to, at this point, give a immense thank you to the Figurskys for many, many years of serving at the helm with the technology of the community and the website. Patricia in particular with the database, which is another service that we need, someone looking after and updating the database and all the new members and changes and etc. They have discerned that they need to stop their service. They continue to do it regardless, but we really need someone to fill those shoes, and they are gladly waiting to train anyone. But really, it's a huge service, but it's also a very fulfilling service, and it's a beautiful service because it's really, you would be amazed at how many people through the website discover the community. And of course, SOS Prayer, which is a prayer ministry that we have through the website. So thank you, Patricia and Micha.
Is there a service locally or nationally that I can help with, or that I can learn to do? That's something we should be asking ourselves. And am I truly giving my time, talent, and treasure to my brothers and sisters in community, or am I just leaving it up to the few that have leadership roles?
You know, in the church, it's often said, or at the parish level, that I think the numbers are 30% of parishioners do 100% of the work, or something like that. And I have to say that in the community, we find ourselves oftentimes being very few of us who do a lot of the work. And it's typical. You know, we were called to do this service, and we gladly do it. But we think that by involving our brothers and sisters in doing more specific services and in helping locally or nationally, it can be very fulfilling and very rewarding to see how this all contributes to the big picture and how it can unite us, really, because we're all kind of like a member of a family, really. That's what it comes down to. Mission, the final point, mission. As members, we are called to mission, and perhaps these missions are in your area, for instance, and we'll be announcing at the very end different missions that will be happening in this year. Or perhaps your household has taken on a mission, and if you haven't, consider as a household taking on a mission of running a school of adoration, love and truth. There will be a training of love and truth coming up in April in Minneapolis, doing Mercy Nights like they're doing in New Jersey and now Boston. The mission will not come to you. You really have to seek it out. And so we're asking each member to prepare and write and record their testimony. And this is your biggest mission this year. It's a personal mission. It's a very essential mission to being a Christian. Each of us should be able to say on a dime what our testimony is. Why are we Catholic? And we should have different versions of it. We should have the super fast elevator version. We should have the long drawn out version for someone who has the time to listen. And we should have, versions for young people, versions for couples, etc. But we really want each member, including ourselves, to sit down and write their testimony and to work in maybe pairs and help each other to write these testimonies. And what we could do is send out kind of like an outline of how it is we should write out our testimony, because in essence, a testimony is not about us. It's not about my life and what's happened to me, but a testimony is about what God has done in my life, and it's all about God. So we ask each of you to sit down and do this. And what we will be doing is we'll be organizing this state by state, and either during your households or community days, you will get a chance to record your testimony. And of course, we'll ask for your permission, but the end goal is to upload every month or every 2 weeks someone's testimony to the website. So that's mission. And just to kind of summarize really quickly, I hope we haven't taken too much of your time. We'll finish up now. But Really the points were experiencing closeness and unity. How can we do that? And we listed the many ways that we can do that through communication. How do we live out commitment? Serving our local community, serving our national community, tithing. Again, service. How do we serve our brothers and sisters, and going beyond our talents, going beyond our comfort zone, and finally living the mission, and particularly preparing our testimony to share on the website, and of course just being ready when we're on street evangelization or Mercy Night, etc. And now, time for news of what's going on around the country, what's going on as far as missions this year. And we just want to acknowledge some people and great things that have been happening. So we'll start with Boston.
Boston launched monthly Mercy Nights with Pure in Heart America and Zacchaeus course in English.
And they actually just recently did a Zacchaeus course in French, which was very, very successful, and hence why they're doing it in English. And if you do not know what Zacchaeus is a course, a formation course on the social doctrine of the church, and it's been very successful wherever it's been done around the world.
And it is for use in the business place.
Yeah, it's used in the business place, but it's really it's interesting for any Catholic, really. And in Boston, we welcome Eleanor and Ghislaine, who are expecting a child any day now. And of course, those of you who were at the National Weekend, Christina and Chris Kelly, who are expecting their baby in March. And then we move on to Texas.
We've got Pax Miguel, born in October, to Claudine and Serge in Texas again. We've got the ESM Pentecost mission in mid-June, June 8th to the 16th in Northern California. Everybody's invited. We got the couples retreat in French in March in Northern California.
And that will be run by Father Charles, who is the current director of the Emmanuel School of Mission in New York. We'd also like to welcome the Fleury family, if I'm mispronouncing these French names, I'm sorry, in California, who recently moved out from France. And then in our Miami community, which is where I'm from, the community has set out to do works of compassion twice a month together. And this is a great way to not only grow in holiness, but to really grow closer together as brothers and sisters. Lorenzo and Daima, who are originally from the community in Cuba and who have been living in Miami for a few years now, welcomed their first grandchild. So they are newly grandparents. Congratulations.
We have a phone household with all those who are alone, basically isolated in South Dakota, Missouri, and Wyoming.
And this has been about, I think, a year now that they've had this phone Skype, and it's really lent to just allowing those who are completely alone in their cities to have a time of fraternal time of sharing, but also it has inspired local households and in those places, but they continue to have the phone households so that they can receive as well, to be able to give. There will be a North American priest retreat next week in Minnesota, so please keep all the priests in your prayers, and for the Canes who have organized this. We hope that all the priests are able to attend.
And then we have Emmanuel School of Mission in Minnesota the first week of March.
And that will be a mission there. All the missions are open to all brothers and sisters, so if you are interested in going, please contact the local leaders or contact us and we can give you more information. In Minneapolis or in Minnesota, Tom and Katie, I can never say that, Jansher? Sorry, Katie and Tom. Jansher are expecting their first child. They got married recently, so congratulations.
And then we have Pennsylvania community has a parish that welcomes them in Ambler, PA, St. Anthony of Padua, and their mission will be to reach out to non-active parishioners.
And this is a great way to be more active and to be more visible to your parish communities, just to say, hey, we're here, we're a community, our graces are to evangelize, and we would like to serve you. And like in the instance of the Pennsylvania community, they said, hey, we need this, we need people to reach out to parishioners who don't attend Mass anymore. Fine. We offered to do a school of adoration at our parish for young children, and they seemed interested as well. So just say, we're here, this is what we can offer you, because our first mission should be at our parishes. And finally, we want to acknowledge and congratulate those who made steps of welcome and discernment and commitment at the national weekend in Atlanta. Edith and Tristan Mollet, Elise Vaidi, she became an associate member. And then those who made the step of commitment were...
So Isabel Fawcett, Bridget Haran, Laura Schuberg, Carolyn and Armand Delavoye, and Ulrich, Jean, and Natalia.
So congratulations to you all, and we're so happy to have you committed in the community. And finally, we also want to acknowledge the dedication and tireless work of some people in the community who really are the backbone of the community, and we couldn't do our service without them. Rosemary LeBlanc, we love you, and we thank you so much for everything you do and all the times you are there to answer the email or phone call within minutes for a last minute question or advice. For Patricia and Michal Figursky, as we mentioned earlier, for all their tireless efforts for the website and the database, and Patricia had this love for just reaching out to community members to see how they were doing. It's one of her gifts, so thank you so much for doing that. And Camille and Paul Leblon, who are oversee the West Coast and Texas. Thank you for all the work that you do. We know you're very busy. And Jacqueline and Patrick Kane, who are leaders of Minnesota, but are also just so involved in so many different things, and they really just do so much, not only for the local community, but for the national community. So we thank you so much, and we pray for you. And finally, we want to leave you with a few things to remember to do. One, please sign up for the website to get news. As the news comes in, you'll get a little notice in your email box. Very important. We noticed that many community members are like, oh, when is this happening? We're like, it's on the website. So we're noticing that you're not signing up. Can you just sign up? It takes 2 minutes. One, sign up for PayPal,
Sign up for the PayPal tithing contribution, no matter how small it is.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's okay. Small is fine.
Please discern a service that you can tend to locally or nationally, and we will again distribute a list of what our needs are.
Discern companioning somebody else, so being available for companionship.
And along with that, if you need a companion, if you do not have a companion, please contact Rosemary, and she can set you up as soon as she finds one. Prepare your testimony. Very, very important. Pray about it. Sit in front of the Blessed Sacrament and write it. But prepare your testimony. We're coming for you. And finally, reach out to a brother and sister in your area who
outside of your area,
or outside of your area. Who perhaps you haven't talked to, who the last time you saw was at a national weekend, and just say, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Can I pray for you? How can I pray for you? So those are the final points that we leave with you. We thank you for listening to us.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, your time. It was a long video, so if you have to split it in half, we understand. And we just want to leave with prayer and assure you all of our prayers, and we ask that you please pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Today we choose you, Mary, standing before all the saints, to be our Mother and our Queen. We dedicate ourselves to you in humility and love, our bodies and our souls, our gifts and our possessions, the merit of good deeds, those present, past, and still to come. we freely give you the right to deal with us in everything we have, as you see fit, for the greater glory of God, both now and for eternity. Amen.
Pray for us.
God bless you.
Thank you.